Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast with Mike and Mike. Sales is a thinking process. This podcast will help you learn about what works in sales, how to hone your skills, and increase your success. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and as you expect, I've got Mike Simmons with me, but an even bigger treat, Mike Connor is back. Oh, hello, Mike.
Hey, Jody, I don't know if I've been called a treat before. That's pretty nice of you.
I think Jody called you a treat the last time you returned to the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think it was treat. I think you had another one that was equally as flattering. But no, it's nice to be back. I'm surprised I could make it on the guest list. I've been watching the folks that Mike has invited to join our podcast, and it's been great to listen to some perspectives from a lot of different talented folks. So it's been fun to listen to. And then every time I mention I might be available to join him, I kind of get that B-list celebrity treatment where, yeah, well, maybe I'll fit you in sometime in January. But anyhow, no, it's good. I've been busy, but it's good to be back online with you guys.
And here is January.
Yeah, you kept your promise.
Well, you have been busy. You've been up to a lot, but I actually haven't got to talk to you much. And so I'm wondering, what's on your mind?
Well, I mean, it's a new year, right? And I think a lot of us kind of, you hit the reset button and you get back into the groove of things after a holiday break. And I know for me personally, it was super busy at the end of the year. We have one of the customers that we're working with right now is really ramping up pretty quickly. And so that's occupied a lot of my time. I also survived 2 weddings last year. Between 2 of my 3 girls ended up deciding to get married in 2017. So I had a couple of weddings to attend to. I've got number 3 coming up in May. So you probably won't hear from me again until after that one. But so that's kept me busy on a personal front. But like a lot of things, when you have a little bit of free time on your hands, because I have had a little bit of time recently, I kind of do things like check in on LinkedIn and see kind of what the vibe is and what people are talking about and things like that. And there was a particular post this week I was kind of interested in, and it kind of took us into a throwback thinking from some of our earlier discussions when we were talking mostly to salespeople. I know we've branched out and we talk about a lot of things now, but getting back to our core and why we started doing podcasting in the first place was to really help early career sales reps. And it was really interesting just to kind of see the posts that were coming up at the beginning of the year of things people were going to do differently this year and what their good intentions were, but then a few things that were almost in the lessons learned category of what people had learned over the last year. And so I've just been kind of, keeping an eye on conversations between sales folks and things like that. So that's been something that I've been spending a little time on most recently.
Well, it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. I know I just stepped on you there, Simmons, but it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. How have we done without you?
I look at the analytics and it's up and to the right. So I just tell Mike, just keep doing more of what you're doing. And he keeps sending me these really cool graphics of how the podcast is picking up, regular subscribers and people joining. And yeah, it's definitely in the right direction. I don't really listen to him, but...
So wait a second. You just said you listened to some of the great guests that we had on, and then you just said,
"Yeah, I listened to the guests, but I listened to the guests, but I gloss over the Simmons parts.
You don't listen to me." So when you think about what you've seen on LinkedIn, what's something that's popped for you?
Well, just this week there was an interesting thread kind of going along about this idea about discounting and provide discounts to encourage buyers to actually do business with you. And I think, it's a topic I think we've covered before, but, our belief that just having a random discount in place really sends a bad message. If you're just going to throw pricing out there, see if it sticks, and then have these end of month, end of quarter, whatever you want to call them, discounts, that it really diminishes your credibility. And it was interesting to hear this thread where, some early career salespeople were really talking about this idea that the lesson learned was that they're not necessarily putting the best solution forward or doing the best job for their clients if all they're focused on is discounting. If that's going to be the thing where they, and I get it, because I think as a sales rep, you look at that and you say, hey, I'm really doing my client a solid here by helping them save some money. But that's what they become fixated on. And there was a lot of echoing about that same lesson being learned by a lot of people, that pricing and discounting, as soon as that becomes the focus, then the value that they're adding kind of becomes the secondary discussion. And they get caught up in this back and forth of providing more and more discounts just to try and get deals closed. And, all the thread replies I read were all from early stage sales reps. And so they all had that perspective. And one of the perspectives I kind of wanted to throw out there was that, as a buyer, I ask for discounts. I try and push a salesperson. If I think that there's room for me to save money, I'm going to ask for it. It's like anything else in life, that if you think you can get a better deal, that's what you're going to push for. And there's some thinking about, I think it's important to be friends with your buyers, be friends with your customers and all that good stuff. And, it's another thing that I think is kind of a dangerous assumption, because you're never really friends with the person you're buying from. Do you have a good working relationship? Do you make a good impression? Are you the person they want to do a transaction with? Absolutely. Are they going to be your new best friend and like all your lunch pictures from, Facebook and all that stuff? Probably not. But the reality is what your focus is on delivering value and solving problems for people. And that's the level of friendship that you should expect. It's not a new buddy, and they're not going to do business with you because they like you. They'll talk to you and they'll give you the opportunity to do business because they like you. But people aren't going to just make investments on behalf of their company because they think you're a nice person. So there was that part of the thread. And what I suggested was, as a buyer, I want to like the people I do business with. I want them to do what they say they're going to do. I want them to follow through on ideas that they bring to the table. But at the same time, as soon as I get a whiff of there might be a room to negotiate a lower price or get a discount, I'm going to jump on it. And for the less sophisticated salesperson that takes the bait, I'm probably going to ask repeatedly until I get to the point where I know I've gotten to the floor, if that's what you want to call it. And a lot of that's driven on the confidence of the sales rep. If the sales reps, if I just ask for a random discount and they come right back and say, well, I don't really have a way to discount this, we can take a look at what we're doing for you and what we're delivering. And if it's a budget issue where you need to reduce the overall investment, we can talk about ways to get down to a number that you're trying to reach, but I can't just, randomly discount it. And that's the end of the conversation. But if the comeback is, well, let me go to my manager and see if I can get you an end of quarter special and all that good stuff, then I know I've got room to work. And, nothing personal, but if I can save my company, especially when you own the company, when you can save your company money, that's what you're going to do.
Well, I had no idea you had that many words built up inside you.
I know, right? Is this almost wrapped up?
I think we should just cut it off there. So a couple of things I'd like to, I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it, unpack there. First one, on the relationship side, I've been really successful in my career based on the relationships I've been able to build with customers and those long-standing relationships. So I think relationships are important. It just depends on the type of sale that you're involved in, the type of transaction. If it's highly transactional and people are kind of going through, you're not going to have the same relationship with the person who goes through the McDonald's drive-through as the person who buys a multi-million-dollar deal with a defense contractor. So I think relationships are still really important. People like working with folks they trust. And in order to have that trust, I believe the trust has to go beyond just the product that you're delivering. It's how the solution aligns with the problem folks are running into. And on that end, then no matter how you discount it, if it's not the right solution, it's not the right thing. We've joked before about different places where you'll never pay full price. Can't imagine ever paying full price for something at Kohl's or Timbuktu, as an example. You just know that those discounts are going to come through periodically. Discounting is a really, really weak crutch that a lot of early stage reps lean on, where they think that's the value I'm delivering to my customer. They could buy it for $200,000 if they buy it online based on the number of users and the price points that are made available publicly. But if they come to me, I can save them 10% and they can buy it for $180K. The value that the sales rep should deliver to its customer is much more than just pricing. The value should be that validation that the solution is going to do what the customer expects it to do, that the customer is actually going to be able to execute on it. And it's good to see some people kind of coming around. I don't know that they're coming completely around on that, but it's good to see some people coming around saying, hey, discounting is not the right path to success. Because once you start down that path, you're not only going to give the discount to the person you think is the buyer, you're going to give the discount to the ultimate decision maker. You're going to give the discount to the person in procurement who needs to get their piece out of the deal to justify their job. So just be careful if you try going down that slope, or if you start going down that slope.
Well, just getting Mike Connor back has sparked quite a conversation here.
I spark where I can.
I think we should start calling him Sparky.
That's already taken, though.
So with these discounts, Mike Connor, you're the one that brought this up. You've been involved in that discussion on LinkedIn, and you've kind of played both sides of it. You say, of course, as the owner of a company, I'm going to get a discount wherever I can. And you've also said, but as a salesperson, in different words, you said, I shouldn't be giving a discount. So what advice do you have for especially somebody newer in their sales career, knowing people are going to want the discount? It's in the best interest to some degree, at least in thinking, it's in the best interest of the person on the other side of the table to try to get a discount, but you're also saying you shouldn't give the discount. So that could be a little confusing for somebody new in their career, thinking, oh my goodness, that's what they want and I can make them happy with it. But also Connor's telling me I shouldn't do it. So what advice do you have for someone in that position?
Well, so there's different environments you can work in. In some cases, a discount has been artificially baked into your pricing model, and it's just an accepted practice that occasionally you have a discretionary ability to provide a 10% discount without it impacting your compensation and all that good stuff. And it becomes a de facto discount. I know in a previous life, we had a setup fee that was tied to the total engagement. And it wasn't just a random setup fee that, the cable company gives you where somebody had to flip a switch. It was a legitimate work effort to bring an account online. And we had to pay people with technical expertise to be able to do things like single sign-on and other technical work where it had a hard cost associated with it. And we, as an organization, we lumped it into a setup fee, if you will. And when people hear the term setup fee, immediately they think you're just trying to get them for an extra 8 or 10% or what have you. And by default, the organization said, hey, if you need to waive the setup fee to get a deal done, then it's okay to waive it. Well, what we saw happen was the setup fees were getting waived every single time. And in the P&L, that started to hurt us because the reality was we had to pay that services cost somewhere. So it came out of the margin of the deal and not from the services piece of it that we allocated to it. So there's models where you have costs built into the pricing, and some companies may have a discretionary 10% built in there where they know, hey, we can give up 10% if that's what'll get it over the line. I think what my preference is to have value attached to anything that you're adding, say, to deal. So using that same example in a setup fee, if there's real work there, make sure the client understands, what is involved with that fee so it doesn't become a random discount. And so with how we turned that around there was, anytime a customer, they would be presented with the setup fee with the description of what that meant in the proposal. And then when the dark mic buyer that I was a second ago, when I was conflicted, will come back and say, oh, we can move forward, but we want you to waive the setup fee. And then the conversation would sound like, well, okay, let's take a look at what that is. It's not just a random fee, and it's not something we just waive. Are there things that we're going to be doing for you that aren't necessary? So you're saying waive the setup fee. Well, part of that is the single sign-on integration you wanted us to do to get this platform implemented. Do you just not want to do that? Do you want to just use individual name and password and we won't do the SSO? And they come back and they say, no, we need the SSO. It's like, okay, well, we have people that are going to do that work, and that's what that setup fee is. It's not random. That usually ended the conversation because once they saw value attached to the dollar amount, then all of a sudden it wasn't just this thing that they thought maybe you had the ability to wave a wand at and make go away. And I would say that the same is true in anything that you've put a proposal together on. First of all, our approach at Catalyst has always been be very straightforward and concise about a initial proposal. In other words, we're going to give you the most value that you can get from us at a price point that we can stand behind and describe and explain from a value perspective. And there's no cushion in there. We're not looking for you to come back and say, well, if we could do it for 10% less, then we'll do the deal. I mean, the way we present things, it's in a value proposition that lets them know, okay, this is what the investment is. This is what we will deliver. This is what we expect the return on the investment to be. And we don't have a lot of pricing discussions. But I realize in a lot of cases, the things that we sell, people are going to ask for discounts. And a lot of it, unfortunately, sales drives a lot of that behavior. I mean, think of the companies you deal with that, at the end of the quarter, if you've been a valid opportunity inside of a company's database and they're selling a product, and at the end of the quarter, they want to close as much business as they can, all of a sudden you're getting emails, asking you to come aboard in favor of a discount. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just like, oh, it's the end of the quarter. We want to give you a discount. So at that point, and we've talked about this before, I know that if you tell me that by October 31st, if I sign, I'll get a 10% discount. I know that if I call you on November 2nd, I'm still going to get that 10% out of you. So it's just one of those things that's just kind of it's a gateway to future discussions about, and now I know you have room in your price model to be able to give me more and more discounts. So I think Mike alluded to it, it's kind of a slippery slope once you get on it.
Well, and we've conditioned buyers and in sales, we've conditioned buyers to do that, to go through and have those expectations. So in the interactions that you have with your customers, you can set the expectations up front about how pricing works and the value that you're delivering to the customer and the context for which your proposal is delivered relative to what's important to them. So, like any of these discussions, we kind of get back into the idea of trading. So say there's a scenario where someone says, okay, your competitor is offering a 10% discount, or your competitor is able to do it at 30% less than you're able to do it. How do you respond to those, Mike?
Well, you have to see if it's an apples to apples comparison. I mean, if somebody, odds are, based on the things that we take to market, the products we work with, the things that we sell, there's never a direct one-for-one correlation between what they're selling and what we're selling. I mean, that would be like, at a Toyota dealership on one corner is selling me a Camry, and the Toyota dealership across town is selling me the exact same Camry. Now you're in a commodity sale. And the only variable in that purchase is going to be the price, because it's the only differentiator between those two products. I don't think many of us live in that world where it's exactly the same. And I think it's up to you to understand, if you're being compared and benchmarked against a competitor, that they're using price, or the customers recognize, hey, we can save a lot of money by implementing that solution. You really need to understand how you can compare yourself with that solution and highlight why the pricing might be different. I mean, there could be cases where somebody is actually offering a better product than you have at a lower price point. Well, then you got a problem. You've got a fundamental sales problem. That's not about discounting. That's just about, you have not to price your product in the market in a way that is compelling and that people are going to want to buy it. At that point, then you have a whole nother discussion internally to say, here's what's going on in the market. We've got a competitor that actually does what we do plus this. And by the way, they are 30%, they're priced 30% lower than we are. Then you've got a fundamental problem that you've got to address, I think, from a market perspective. What I was more referencing was, just the thought of, hey, I'm doing somebody a favor by giving them a discount. You're really not. You're not shedding the best light on yourself and your company, and you're opening the door for future. I mean, that'll be the one thing that the customer remembers to talk about with you is discounting. And it's not going to be about the things that are probably more important.
Yeah, it's that whole discussion of, hey, last year, Mike, you were able to get me a 10% discount. What can you do for me this year? And we don't want to be in those discussions.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you that have been in that scenario before, where your company or somebody before you needed strategically to sell a specific customer, and they did everything they could to get this customer on board, and they actually took a negative margin deal and said, yeah, but this is just an investment year. We're going to go ahead and do it this year so we can, say we got them as a customer. They're going to be a great reference. They're going to write a case study for us. It's going to be smooth sailing, and it's going to have so much value for us in the next year. And the reality is none of that stuff happens. And then at renewal, you end up with a quota in the account, and you try and get them just up to your normal pricing, and they're paying 25% of what the rest of your customers are paying. It's not easy to get them moved up your pricing calculator. I mean, once you've set that thing in stone and you've done a contract with them, it's really, really hard to move people north just based on, well, we gave you a good deal in the beginning. Now we need to raise our prices. That's a really tough conversation to have. And I'm trying to think of a time when I've been able to do it successfully. And I'm really not thinking of an example. I don't know if you could think of one where you can inch them up, but it takes a lot of effort to try and get somebody up.
Yeah. I mean, when we've done in different roles, I mean, there have been times where you move away from, for one reason or another, a relationship with a partner no longer exists. So now instead of buying the product direct from or through a reseller, through a channel partner, they're now buying direct through the organization. And many times the cost of the product is baked into the solution that the partner is delivering. Well, the partner may line item that out at a number that is significantly different than what they're actually paying us as an organization or paying the company that's creating the product. So let's say that I've got a reseller who's delivering a learning solution inside one of their HRIS systems, and then that HRIS system relationship goes south. In that instance, they might line item the product at X, and the reality is we line item the product at X times 2. So what you try to do, or what we've seen work well in that scenario, and it's hard to get into specifics without naming companies, so I want to be really careful there. But what we've done is put together a plan where over a 3-year period, you get their pricing in line with what the market should be paying for that product. But those are really difficult conversations. You better have a very good relationship with the customer, and your customer better understand the value that you deliver. Because on the customer side, they may come back and say, well, if you've been able to give it to me at this price for the last 3 years, and that's what we believe we've been paying, what's changed? And if you don't have an answer to that, you're probably going to be stuck at whatever that lower price point is. So discounting is a 4-letter word for me. I don't think you ever discount. There are creative things that you can do to support budgetary requirements, like shorter term deals, extending the length of a contract period. But those are all trades that you're conducting with your customer. You're trading a lower price point for a multi-year commitment. That customer will stay with you. So you're playing the long game there. Other things you can do is turn maybe there are 3 months remaining in their fiscal year. Why not do a bridge agreement? Do a 3-month agreement, and then have the new 12-month agreement begin at the beginning stage of their fiscal year. So there are different ways to address the problem. And the problem isn't, hey, I want a discount. It could be something else. Or if that is the problem, then you address it through discussion. So keep asking your whys, get to the root of the problem, make sure you understand it, make sure you've delivered the correct value proposition to the customer in the context of what's important to them. And then you can avoid a lot of these conversations. I think one of the things that Mike didn't hit on that he did inside the post was, if he tests and there's no discount to be had from the sales rep, meaning the sales rep stands their ground, he tends to not ask again.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Thank you for the segue. That's a good one. I was listening intently to everything you were saying. I'm like, okay, where should I jump in here? And I think that, and I was going to put it in the context of, because usually, Jody asked me a simple question was, what advice would you give to a early career salesperson about discounting and what to do? And I think the short answer with that is have confidence in your pricing and don't take the bait. That's how I'd boil this whole discussion down, is to say, people like me and other buyers are going to ask for discounts, and have confidence in what you're doing and what you're proposing, and don't take the bait. And I think the way you answer that question, if I was randomly to ask you for a discount to get a deal done, I would turn around and say, a discount for what? And I would follow with, we don't have, a random pricing model. We don't have random discounts. So what is it that, Mike asked the whys, why is that coming up in the conversation? I think have the confidence in what you're proposing and not get sucked into the discounting discussions. And then hopefully, to what Mike just said that I actually inserted into that post, which is, once I know I'm dealing with a salesperson that has delivered a proposal to me that makes sense, and they also don't take the bait for just giving me a random discount, then I think of that, and I value that relationship as well. I just drop it. I know that's not something that I'm going to want to push kind of going forward. So, and it's hard to do it when you're wrapped up in a deal and you've got it down to the, it's the one that's going to put you over the top or whatever the case might be. It's hard sometimes to think, well, geez, the easy way is just give 10% and this thing will be done. But it's really not. So just be confident.
Well, Connor, this has been great having you back. It has led to a wonderful discussion. As we wrap up, do you have just one final piece of advice about discounts? You've given us so much already, though.
I think it's just be confident in your pricing and don't take the bait.
All right. That's a great way to wrap up. Welcome back, Mike. And thank you, Simmons. This was a great episode. And thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale Podcast. You can find past episodes of the show and ways to connect with us at catalystsale.com. Thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale Podcast.